Hi, I'm Karen, and I'm here at the Cool Tools Studio today to share with you guys another project that I've had a lot of fun with. Today, we're going to be making a woven pendant. Here's the finished project. I really like this project because the final project visually looks complex, but it was actually pretty easy to make. Here are the tools that we're going to be using in the first part of our process. We're going to be working with EZ960 sterling clay, and we're going to be rolling out sheets of clay. So we're going to use these clay thickness rolling frames alongside Cool Slip so things don't stick to everything. And then we've got the clay roller here. We're going to want an ultra clay pick on top of a workboard. And then also you'll need this Teflon sheet. So we're going to begin this project by rolling out sheet to 2 cards thick that we're going to then place into a clay dehydrator at 165 degrees. And we do that because you get this truly amazing flexible quality to the EZ960 clay. As I said earlier, we're working on this Teflon work surface because it can go directly into the clay dehydrator. So after we've rolled out our clay, we don't have to worry about trying to peel it off of the clay board. I'm going to start off with some Cool Slip. About 8 or so inches away. That was plenty, so I'm going to spread it out some. And then go ahead and put some Cool Slip on my roller as well. I'll start off with my 4 rolling frame and work my way down to the 2. I've got here 25 grams of clay. My finished piece only ended up weighing about 11 or so, but you want to make sure you give yourself plenty to work with. I like to kind of just squish it out first. Give myself a little more of a flat surface to roll before I get going. I'm going to roll them to 4 cards thick. Alright. Before I move down to the 2 cards thickness, it looks like I'm kind of going to exceed the room of my frame there, so I'm going to give it a quick trim. So now we're going to roll it a step down to 2 cards thickness. Alright, so now that I've got a nice even thickness on my clay, before I dry it, I am just going to trim up the edge really quick so I'm not drying extra clay. And then, as I had said earlier, this work surface can go directly into the clay dehydrator. And we're going to be drying and heating our clay at 165 degrees for 10 to 15 minutes. And you want to flip it halfway in between. While that sheet's in the dehydrator, go ahead and make yourself a second sheet. The first sheet is going to be cut into strips for the warp, but then you're going to need more clay to weave your weft. For this step, you're going to need a self-healing mat, a scalpel, and a 6-inch ruler. We're going to be cutting our dried clay into strips that we're then going to weave into the pendant. I'm going to be using this longer strip for the strips to run this way for the warp, and then the smaller section to cut this way for the weft of my pendant. In my project, I cut my strips about 3 millimeters or so, but if you want to do a thicker woven, then it's entirely up to you. I'm just kind of eyeballing it I could go along and mark with a pencil if I really wanted to, but I think it'll look fine. So I'm using this ruler as a straight edge and a guard for my scalpel as I cut. I'm just going to continue on until I've cut through the whole sheet and given myself plenty of strips to weave with. Looks like I was kind of cutting at a bit of an angle. This little strip is too big to be cut into two for me, so you can either use this for something else or it can be reconstituted for another project. So now that I've got these guys ready, I'm going to cut this piece of strips this way so that it may be woven through. Just like before, I'm going to go ahead and cut this piece into strips, and I'll catch up with you when I'm done. Now that my strips are cut, I've moved back to my clay board for the assembly. I'm also going to need a wick away and a brush, and EZ960 paste and a syringe. So I'm going to be grabbing one of these smaller pieces, and I'm going to start off by going under and over these pieces. And I usually like to start by putting my first strip kind of in the middle and then build on either side to kind of tighten to it. When I started at the very top, it would kind of slip out and it would be difficult to get a tighter weave as I went. So I just kind of use the front of my hand to kind of keep them down, and then because this clay is so flexible, you can just kind of push on the back of it to raise it to put the other piece underneath. So under that one, so it's going to go over the one next to it. And then the first two are usually the kind of hardest to get settled, just because these edges are going to be tempted to slip away until you get one over it on the other side. I'll sometimes use either the blunt end of my brush to kind of help nudge things up. You can use the pick too, you just have to make sure that you don't like stab or poke the clay and leave a mark. So since I started under on the last one, this guy's going to start over on this one. Again, this clay is just so flexible. And then sometimes I kind of have to come next to it and push the ones that are supposed to put under down. Like I said, the first two are the clumsiest. I'm going to nudge this guy up to the other one, and also make sure I'm keeping these edges straight and tight as well. And don't worry about, oh, this one's hanging out more than this side. We're going to be trimming all of that away. You just want some extra on the sides to help you keep your pieces in place. Alright, so just like before, starting opposite of the one before it. See, it's a little easier once the other ones are there to help keep things from sliding around on you. I'm going to rotate at this point to add one to this side. I'm just going to keep on weaving and making sure that I'm keeping everything nice and tight until I've reached my desired length, and then I'm going to catch back up with you guys. Now that I've woven in as many strips as I wanted to achieve my desired length, we're going to use the syringe paste to kind of tack it all together and make it one solid piece. So I like to use a brush and dampen the sections first before going ahead and using the syringe paste. I find that it sticks a little better that way. I'm putting on the smallest tip because you don't need a lot, and any that squishes out on the edge is just going to make your piece look messy. I like to start by using a paintbrush to dampen the area. I find that it sticks a little better that way. And then I'm going in with my syringe paste using the smallest tip because you don't want to get too much extra paste or it'll squish out on the sides and make things look kind of messy. I'm just kind of gently pressing it down. If some does squish out, I'm just kind of using my damp brush to kind of smooth that in some. And we're just going to move down the line, the ones that are on this top face, and then we're going to flip it over and do the ones on the back. Again, wipe up any extra paste. That's why I've got a brush handy. You don't want to use too much moisture, just enough that things are going to adhere. Oh, that was very generous. Wipe that away. I know that one will be very well stuck on. And I can kind of clean up the best that I can and come back to it on the other side if I have to. So I've got this side done, and I'm going to continue to work my way around the whole piece before I flip it. I've completed tacking down the loose ends on this side all the way around, so now I'm going to flip it over and do exactly what I did on the front, on the back. This is also an opportunity to clean up any extra paste that you couldn't see from that side. We are going to be trimming that edge, but if you need to clean up any spots now, you can as well. Now that I've pasted all of my ends down, I've moved back to the self-healing mat because we're going to be trimming away the excess. Before you get going, make some design choices. I left some hanging on mine, but if you think, oh, that's going to get caught on things and bug me, you can trim it all away. Just make sure that you leave these top two long because those are going to be bent around, and that's what your pendant is going to hang from. The extra clay that you do cut off, you can reconstitute it, you can do something else with it. It's never going to go to waste. So I've just got my scalpel again, and I'm just going to cut along that edge and get rid of those extra little strips. So I kind of like them long like this. I'm just going to leave them like that. But again, you could maybe cut longer, shorter, and do something else with it if you want. I'm actually going to be able to get a cleaner cut if I rotate it. You can see a little better this way. I accidentally cut into my strip some. I'm just gonna ease that back out. No one has to know. So now I'm gonna trim the top of my pendant, and again, I wanna make sure I leave these guys so they can be bent. Alright, so now I'm going to fold these around, dampen the area, and use a little bit of paste to attach them again. At this point it's kind of easier to get the paste in there before you fold it. And it's pretty flexible, but you still don't want to just fold it very hard and fast. Kind of want to be gentle. Sometimes I'll use a rounded thing to kind of gently curve it with. Paintbrush works great. Just kind of gently coaxing it down. Give it a gentle press to make sure it's sticking. And then I'm going to repeat that on the other side. And now that I've got it flipped, I also noticed there's a little bit that I didn't quite trim on that side. I'm going to clean that up too, and down here. Now that I'm done with assembly and cleanup, I'm going to dry this piece and then fire it on an open shelf kiln at 1675 for 2 hours. While my other piece is firing in the kiln, I've got this one already prepared to show you guys how to solder the chain onto the pendant. If you would like to skip this step, you can use a jump ring to connect your chain to your pendant. I just preferred the way that the chain looked when it led directly into the pendant. If you are soldering, you're going to need a torch. You're going to be using this brazier. You're going to need some handy flux and a brush to apply it. I've got my chain over here too. I'm using CHN411, which is a sterling silver curb chain. And then I also have easy solder wire that I've pre-cut to make things easy for me while I'm filming. I've got wire cutters to open up the links that I'm going to be soldering to the pendant. And then I have pliers that I'm going to use to help close the links tightly around the loops that I'll be soldering it to. I've got tweezers or a pick to place my solder with. I'm probably going to use the pick. I find it's a little easier, but if you'd like to use tweezers, those work great as well. Alright, I'm going to grab my chain here. I'm going to find my ends, and I'm going to cut them open. There's one. And I'm going to use these pliers to help me open up the links. Then I'm going to close around the loops on my piece. Since my loops are kind of thick, I'm opening it up nice and wide. And it's going to go through there, and then I'm going to close the link as tightly as I can. Once I solder this, I know it's going to rotate back down and be hidden, so I'm not going to worry too much about like filing the ends that are going to be soldered together clean or anything like that, because we're not going to see that closure. But you do want to make sure they meet well, otherwise the solder is just going to jump to one side and not truly solder. Alright, I'm going to repeat that on the other side. And those are both closed about as good as I can get them. And then I'm going to angle it away from my piece a little bit while I'm going to solder, because I don't want to have it really close to this edge and then end up soldering to that loop there. So I've got those both positioned. And then before I solder, I need to apply flux to the seam. So I've got my handy flux here. And I'm actually going to want to fire on this brick. So heading back over here. Now that it's ready to solder, I'm going to apply my handy flux. I like to dump the solder that I'm going to be using onto a brick before balling it with the torch and picking it up with a pick. If you would like to place the chips with your tweezers, you can do that as well. Again, since it's just these seams and they're not really close to each other, I'm starting with easy. Now we're good to solder. I'm going to first apply a little bit of heat to my links that I'm going to be soldering before hopping over here, picking up my solder, and bringing it to the previously heated area. See the flux go clear. Ball it up. Again, I want to make sure it's not so close to my actual piece that it's going to solder to that instead. And there it goes. Repeat that on the other side. So my flux ran clear, so I'm going to bring my solder over. And try to evenly heat that link. If I heat one side more than the other, the solder's just going to hop onto that side, and you're not going to get a full seam. And there it goes. Now that this is soldered, it's ready for a dip in the pickle. My piece has been pickled, and now I'm ready to finish it. You can apply patina gel, you can polish it, whatever you'd like. On mine, I used the Cool Tools patina gel and used a tumbler to shine it up. This project's just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many other things you can do with this technique. You can add texture to some of your strips using texture tiles for additional visual interest. On this piece, I played around by using thicker strips in one direction and thinner strips in another. If you enjoyed this technique, you can just keep on weaving and make yourself a cuff. There are plenty of possibilities with this project, and I'd love to see you try something new. If you do make something, tag me on Instagram. I'd like to see it. Thanks for watching today.
Visit our Learning Center at cooltools.us for more cool jewelry making videos. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and be sure to sign up for our email list to be the first to hear about new videos, new products, and other cool stuff from Cool Tools.